Hey, this is Al from Transformational Gaming. Appreciate you coming by. Appreciate you coming to the channel. Today, I would like to talk about The Last of Us Part 1 and the outrage therein. This video really was inspired from a video I seen not too long ago, and it doesn't matter who made the video or not. I was just deeply disturbed by some of the things that were said in the video because honestly, the dude is really just a PlayStation 5 or Sony fanboy. And there's nothing wrong with a dedicated channel. You know, I never want to get into the situation of calling somebody stupid, right? But there's a lot of things I want to talk about that, you know, because this guy got like 50,000 subscribers. God help me. I want to make sure that at least 731 of you guys who subscribe to my channel has the opportunity to have some knowledge versus this wide go for people who are being misled. One day maybe we'll get the channel to that level, but right now I'm concentrating on you guys because I do believe that if you start out with a few people who have some knowledge, then it'll definitely spread over time. So what are we talking about today? Well, before I get into all of that, if you like the content that is on the channel, feel free to hit me up again. And you know what to do. If you like the channel, I'm not going to really be begging and crying, but you've seen the animations, so you know what we would like you guys to do in order to stay successful. So let's get back into it. The Last of Us Part 1 is coming out. There was some outrage by a whole lot of different outlets and channels and stuff like that about how the graphics looks and how the graphics aren't that far away from the original. Now, I tend to agree with this, but I think there is some misunderstanding about the position that Sony's in. And the first thing I want to start off is say that, listen, Sony is not making all the money. Let me say this again, man. Sony is not making all the money. Sony, like everybody else, is in a downturn. And there's a couple of things that I want to talk about real quick that lets you know that Sony's in a downturn. And they may be looking for a quick buck. They may want more from us. And I think we don't owe Sony anything. Sony doesn't owe us anything. But I do think that them raising the price is for a good reason. Because, yes, they're selling consoles out the wazoo. Are they in the lead for as far as consoles sold is concerned? Yes, they're in the lead. But I'm going to tell you right now, there's a lot of factors that is hurting Sony's pocketbook. And one of those factors is the yields and the price for the PlayStation 5. The PlayStation 5's value is being retained. I mean, it's being retained big time. And the real issue is that that's not good for anybody. Like, when you got a console that is retaining its value, that means that the next iteration, as far as slimming it down and things like that, that stuff is going to be expensive. I mean, it just is. And Microsoft is going through the same thing. And it retaining its value and being difficult to yield is hurting Sony financially. And the fact that they had to reforecast their prediction on what they was going to sell for this generation, I mean, to me, it tells it all. They had to reforecast what they was going to sell for the first couple of years of this generation. They was looking to sell like 58 million, 100 million and stuff like that. No, they had to rethink that and go back because we're in supply difficulty and inflation is up. The consoles is retaining their value while inflation is up. That's a double whammy. Okay. And the real issue is that we have a world problem that is causing supply, and we're at like a Cold War. So that makes everything more expensive. So Sony is not doing great when it comes to selling consoles, because really selling consoles is not what's getting Sony all the money, as it's put. Okay, so Sony doesn't make any money, and I don't think they ever have made any money on selling consoles. The real is doing what they're doing, and that is publishing, having Sony makes their money. So the fact that they're increasing the price shows you that, look, Jim Ryan is basically under the gun. He's under the gun to get more revenue for Sony. That's why you're hearing about all these cloud services and these games as a service rumors by Sony. Sony know this is not going to work. I'm pretty sure they looked at what Xbox is doing and what streaming is and stuff like that. And I told you that they're not going to do it. Yeah, they put the PlayStation Network games on the PS Plus stuff, but really that is not the answer. I think they see that. So what are they doing? They're bumping up the price. They're coming out with these games. Are they half-baked? They may be. But everything has got to get sold at $70. I'm pretty sure that's mandated by the chairman at Sony. You can tell they hired revenue for Sony's, because I'm pretty sure the chairman is like, look, we got all these assets and all of these games. We need to start cashing in on this stuff, because that's just what's going on, man. Everybody's hurting for money. This is a downturn. Like, this is a downturn of epic proportions. Everybody's losing money. Microsoft is losing money. The stocks is like a bear market. And the thing is that Sony's financial posture doesn't help, because, you know, the EU is raising interest rates and the US is raising interest rates. And not to get too business oriented, because I understand this is a gaming channel, but these is some of the business situations that cause economic disaster, is when you got something that they call stagflation, where there's inflation, but regardless how much you raise the interest rates, people are still buying at a high clip, and that's a problem. And having stagflation is definitely hurting Sony. And I told them, I said at the beginning, they should have sold that console for $1,000, but they wanted everybody to have the console, and I get it. But I still believe they should have sold that console for $1,000. They should have went with somebody like Nvidia. They could have had DLSS on that bad boy and called it the day. Because I know, you know, all about the PlayStation 3 stuff and how Nvidia and Sony kind of wasn't on the best of terms for a little while. But honestly, I mean, all this stuff matters, and Sony's not making bank. They're just not. They're not making a lot of money. And a lot of it is because a lot of people are still looking for PS5s. And because of people are still looking for PS5s, that is a serious situation that Sony needs to overcome. Now, one last thing I want to bring out about Sony. Microsoft is what they call cash rich, right? And just because they're cash rich, that means that they're able to sell stock and use it to buy whatever they needed to do or finance whatever they need to finance. But the reality of the matter is that Sony's not positioned in that way. Sony's financial posture is credit. Okay? And they are borrowing big time. And the fact that interest rates are going up, that is another blow to Sony. So Sony got some real problems, man, and they need to come up with cash. And this $70 stuff for The Last of Us is the key. And so that kind of puts me right into what people are outraged about. So that's a good transition. Now, the game itself, The Last of Us Parte 1. Okay, and it's really written like that. I've heard of that before. I guess it's a way for them to have it fancy or whatever, right? But the real issue is that The Last of Us, the game, all right, the game that we're going to actually receive. And look, I think the gripes are legit. I mean, the game doesn't look hands over fist better than the original Last of Us, especially the remastered version. And so, is it worth $70? No, it's not. But I think that the real issue is that I have is that, I mean, really we going off of leaks of probably grunt employees who probably got laid off from Sony, because I'm pretty sure a lot of that is going on. And they probably had some footage like they did the first Last of Us, and they are trying to start some propaganda. And my thing is man, let's give it a shot before we start, poo-pooing and talking about this and that, about Jim Ryan should be fired. And, I just think that's really juvenile. I mean, Jim Ryan is going by the direction of the stakeholders, shareholders, and the chairman there at Sony. And I mean, his hands are tied. He's under the gun, and he's probably been given the directive to make some money. And that's probably what you probably look at his history, his resume or whatnot, and he's probably, has a specialty for that. And that's probably why they said, hey, Shu, we're going to give you a break and get Jim Ryan up in here, because that's his directive. I guarantee you it is. And now that he's bought some of these companies and stuff, and they're building games and they're having to invest, the problem is that this is the bad time to invest in anything, because Sony is not a cash rich company. And I know Sony's feeling it. Microsoft is feeling it, but not as bad as Sony. Sony is feeling it. So don't let people tell you about Sony and about how much money they trying to get, and they trying to get all the money. Man, Sony is over there hurting. But they got smart people over there. But Sony is hurting financially, just like the rest of Walmart. They just issue guidance to sell. So, Snap has been hit very hard. Amazon is being hit. Golly, and Google's being hit. They just did a stock split. So financially, like, everyone is getting hit, man. Everyone. AMD is getting killed. AMD is feeling it. Everybody's feeling it. So this is not foreign to Sony, but at the same time, you guys has got to help me reach out to these other people so they won't think that Sony is making all the money. They're not making all the money. They are hurt. And that's why they're charging $70 for this game, which they probably didn't spend hardly any time on. But they knew it was a quick buck to make. Phil Spencer, everybody's trying to grab on some cash. See, the thing about Phil Spencer is that he's giving money. He hasn't made any money for Microsoft. He hasn't made a dime. So he's giving money so he can do whatever he want to do. Sony don't have that privilege, man. The PlayStation brand, the PlayStation department over there is a moneymaker for Sony, and is the kind of the cause of their existence. And I'm pretty sure they got other places that make money, but they don't make money in like appliances and stuff like that. They make money more so in the TV areas and stuff like that. And while it's good to have a diverse place to build and make money, Sony is still in a finance position, and they're looking to raise cash. So take this back to the guy. Y'all know who he is. Let him know what the real state of Sony is. This is Al from Transformational Gaming. It is what it is. May the truth set you free. Later.